And according to Scorsese, it's not cinema. I got to take a look at that,
Why did he say that?
because it's his opinion, and
But it is cinema, isn't it?
I mean, it plays in theaters.
Yeah, well, what did he mean by that it's not cinema?
That is the question. In recent news, Martin Scorsese has publicly come out and said that the MCU is not cinema. And obviously, this caused a lot of controversy because there are a lot of MCU fans out there. And so they are justly mad. But the thing is, I can see where both sides come from. And this is actually a conversation that I've wanted to have for a while and something that I've actually thought about quite often. The difference between a movie and a film. A movie, in my definition, is something that more or less just distracts you from the outside world. It's something that is basically there for pure entertainment. There's not a whole lot of depth to most movies. It's basically your simple story that's directed really, really well. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Some of my favorite movies that I watch over and over again are movies. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, and of course, the MCU movies. And there's virtually nothing wrong with this kind of filmmaking. I love stories that are simple, to the point, and that make me forget about the outside world. And in my opinion, I think that's exactly what movies were meant to be back in like the early 1900s. I think it was basically, nobody was really talking about like, character development and all that back in the early 1900s and all that. It wasn't until movies like, Casablanca and all that and everything in the 1930s and 1940s that we actually started to view movies as sort of an art form. And that's exactly what a film is. A film is a piece of art that is very introspective and provocative. Films are there to make you think. They are filled with layered characters, layered storytelling, and when they're done, you should be leaving the theater as if I didn't see the full story. You want to go back and you want to rewatch it multiple times because there are layers to uncover, characters to dissect, and just the overall story is something that needs to be watched over and over again. So to me, it's no surprise that somebody like Martin Scorsese, who has made these type of films, has come out and publicly said that the MCU movies are not cinema. In my opinion, I think he's saying they're more not films. They're not, stories that, as soon as they're over, you didn't get the full story. You got the full story. When an MCU movie ends, that's it. It's like, it was fun, and you might want to go back and rewatch it because it was a fun movie. But there's not that much depth to the movies. There's just not. The ones that actually come really, really close to being films are probably the first Iron Man movie, Captain America Winter Soldier, and Captain America Civil War. And I would probably even argue that Guardians of the Galaxy, both of them, are pretty damn close to being films. Because all those movies have certain themes and characters that make you think about the outside world, which is another example of what a film is. It makes you think of the outside world that you're trying to escape from. Captain America Winter Soldier, for example, that movie made you think about surveillance and the use of surveillance and what is right and what is wrong with, spying on people and the NSA and all that. That is a very, very film-esque topic to think about. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 had themes of, family abandonment, family issues, and coming together as a family in the end. And the first Iron Man movie had themes of war. The character arc of Tony Stark in that first Iron Man movie was somebody who was very capitalistic, who really only looked at war as a means to make a profit. But by the end of the movie, by the end of the story, he's somebody that's completely changed, and he doesn't want to do that anymore because he sees what his own weapons do to people across the ocean. So these are all very well-made superhero movies that have certain themes and ideas that make them very, very close to being a film. The rest of the MCU is more or less popcorn movies. I mean, think about it. Thor Ragnarok, very fun movie. I actually like that movie quite a lot. But there's not a lot of depth to it. Same thing with Black Panther. I love that movie. I do. I actually didn't like it as much when I first saw it in theaters, but then I rewatched it a couple times, and I do think it's a very fun movie. But again, not a lot of depth. You go and look at every single movie that Scorsese has made, and it is nothing but depth. Each of Scorsese's films end, and you are left with this feeling, like I said earlier, of, oh my God, I didn't get the full story. There are so many layers to this movie, or this film, that need to be uncovered. So obviously, like I said earlier, I see where Scorsese is coming from. He's made some of my favorite films. I mean, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, he's got his new movie, The Irishman, coming out next month. This guy knows how to handle a film. I mean, hell, Joker, took a lot of inspiration from Taxi Driver. So in the end, I'm actually really glad that Martin Scorsese has come out and publicly said this, because it sparks this kind of conversation, and it sparks a conversation that I want to have more with more people. And it gets people thinking about what makes a good movie and what makes a good film. I don't 100% necessarily agree with Martin Scorsese, but I do see where he's coming from, and I do agree with him that most of the MCU are not films. They're just basically popcorn movies that you watch and you spend 2.5 hours at the movie theater and you go home and it's kind of forgettable. But again, there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I mean, those are just my basic thoughts about the whole situation. Like I said, I'm glad that he said it because it sparks this conversation, and I'm excited to see what The Irishman does next month. So if you want to join in on this conversation, leave a comment below. I'd love to talk about it some more. I think it's a fascinating topic that we can all learn from. And maybe in the future, maybe we can get more films like Joker because of this conversation. And I would absolutely love that. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.